The lighthouse that screams on windless nights. Thick fog crept across the rocky coast as my boat approached the island, the ancient lighthouse looming in the gloom. Locals warned never to stay after dark, whispering about screams that echoed even on the stillest, windless nights. I stepped onto the slick pier, lantern in hand, heart pounding with both curiosity and dread of the island's dark reputation. The path to the lighthouse wound through tangled weeds, and every footstep crunched on gravel with unnatural loudness in the heavy air. Rusting signs warned, "Keep out," their letters barely visible through the salt stains and barnacle growth covering the bent metal. As I neared the lighthouse, gulls scattered in silence, and the only sound was the distant crash of unseen waves. The stone tower rose high above, windows dark, and the lantern room a crown of glass, unlit for decades. I ran my hand over the weathered door, paint peeling away to reveal deep gouges, scratches made by desperate hands, or something worse. Inside, the air was thick with mildew, each breath cold and metallic, as if the stone walls themselves were exhaling. Shards of broken mirrors lined the floor, reflecting my lantern's flame in countless trembling, fractured points of light. The winding staircase spiraled upward, echoing my steps. Somewhere above, something thudded as if pacing restlessly. I paused at a faded photograph on the wall of 3 lighthouse keepers, their faces blurred, their eyes scratched out with deep black ink. A journal lay open on a dusty table, pages warped and ink smeared, only a few words readable. Never light the lamp. Never listen. A sudden breeze extinguished my lantern, plunging the room into utter darkness, only the sound of my own breath keeping me company. Fumbling for matches, I heard a faint moan drifting down the staircase, so soft I wondered if it was only my imagination. I relit the lantern, heart pounding, and pressed on, feeling the air grow colder with each upward step. Halfway up, the stairs trembled as if something massive had moved above me, sending ancient dust swirling into the narrow shaft. I passed a rusted oil can, dented and empty. Sitting beside a shattered lantern someone tried to leave in a hurry long ago. A faded raincoat hung on a peg, pockets turned out and torn, as if searched in desperation before being abandoned. A door creaked open at the halfway landing, revealing a cramped bunk room with 4 empty beds, each covered in thick layers of dust. On the nightstand, a cracked glass bottle held scraps of paper messages scrawled in a shaky hand. "Do not answer the voice, and block your ears." The only window was nailed shut from the inside, salt crystals forming strange patterns across the glass. As I peered outside, lightning flashed in the distant storm, illuminating the ocean with stark, unnatural white for a split second. Footsteps echoed behind me on the stairs, measured and slow, but when I turned, the shadows were empty and silent again. The lantern flickered, its light growing weak as an icy draft seeped through the walls, whispering my name with a voice not my own. A clock on the wall ticked backward, hand spinning counterclockwise, time itself seeming to unravel with each second. The wind outside died suddenly, leaving the world in a suffocating silence so absolute I could hear my own heartbeat. Upstairs, the lightkeeper's logbook was chained to a desk, its final pages torn out, ink stains pooling like spilled blood. As I reached the next landing, I glimpsed movement in the glass of my reflection, distorted and grinning, lagging behind my own expression. The air tasted of salt and iron, every breath heavier, as if the lighthouse itself wanted me to turn back. A sudden pounding echoed from the top of the tower, 3 heavy thuds, like fists against an iron door. I climbed faster, each step creaking under my weight, the lantern's light now barely more than a nervous glow. The walls closed in, carved with names and warnings. "Forgive me. Don't listen. It's in the fog," each scratch desperate and deep. At the final landing, a battered trunk lay open, filled with broken compasses. torn maps, and a cracked, dust-choked whistle. Another journal page was taped to the wall. When the screams begin, do not answer, no matter what you hear. Outside, the sea turned unnaturally calm, and the air grew so still even the lantern's flame refused to flicker. I hesitated at the door to the lantern room, my hand trembling, certain something waited for me on the other side. A scream erupted from above long, inhuman, vibrating through the stone and marrow, shaking dust from every ancient stone. I nearly fled, but a strange compulsion drew me onward, as if the lighthouse itself willed me to climb higher. The door swung open on its own, revealing the lantern room awash in ghostly blue light, though no lamp was burning. The massive glass lens spun slowly, reflecting shifting shadows on the walls, each one moving with a life of its own. A keeper's uniform, drenched and rotten, hung from the railing, the sleeves waving as if caught in a phantom wind. I tried to speak, but the air was stolen from my lungs, replaced by the thin, metallic taste of fear. In the lens, I saw scenes from the past, ships crashing, keepers vanishing, storms swallowing voices into the void. A voice whispered in my ear, soft and cold, "You shouldn't have come. Now you belong to the light." I spun around, but found only shadows, each one pulling and rising. Their faces blank, but their mouths wide and screaming. The screaming grew louder, echoing in the glass, until it felt like my skull would split from the noise. Suddenly, everything went silent. The only sound was my own ragged breathing, the glass lens still spinning of its own accord. A shape moved behind the lens, tall and thin, eyes glowing with the same pale blue as the ghostly light. It reached out, fingers trailing mist, beckoning me closer as the air grew colder, heavy with the scent of seaweed and rust. I stumbled backward, but the door had vanished behind me, replaced by a solid wall of swirling, screaming fog. The figure whispered my name, its voice now echoing from everywhere at once, commanding me to light the lamp. Against my will, my hands found the ancient lever, frozen and slick, and I pulled with all my remaining strength. The lighthouse blazed with supernatural energy, blue fire spiraling up the lens, casting shadows that writhed and clawed at the walls. Outside, the sea began to churn, waves rising higher, the sound of countless screams merging with the crashing surf. The glass lens focused on me, beams of blue fire burning through my thoughts, memories flashing before my eyes like stuttering film. The keepers from the photographs appeared around me, their faces hollow and eyes leaking endless streams of seawater. They circled, chanting in a forgotten tongue, their voices merging with the howling wind that now roared around the lantern room. The blue flames reached out, crawling over my skin, icy cold and burning, every nerve ending alive with pain and fear. My reflection in the lens twisted, mouth opening wider, emitting a scream so shrill it shattered the glass around me. The fog outside pressed against the windows, faces forming and dissolving, their eyes wide with terror and longing for release. The keeper's uniform rose into the air, filling as if worn by an invisible presence, arms outstretched in accusation or invitation. I tried to flee, but my legs wouldn't obey. I was rooted to the floor, drawn ever closer to the burning lens. A voice inside my mind pleaded for mercy, but another part urged me to surrender, to become part of the lighthouse's endless scream. The storm outside reached its peak, waves crashing so high they battered the very walls of the tower, salt water spraying through invisible cracks. The lantern shattered, sending shards of blue fire spiraling through the air, each one carrying an echo of the screams trapped inside. Ghostly hands gripped my shoulders, pulling me into the heart of the lens, every memory and secret torn free and scattered like sea spray. I became one with the scream, 1,000 voices crying out for help, forgiveness, for freedom from the cursed light. My body dissolved into mist, swirling with the other lost souls who now circled the lamp, doomed to scream on windless nights. The lighthouse lens spun faster, casting shadows across the sea, each one shaped like those who never returned from the island. The storm began to fade, leaving behind only the faint, eternal echo of the scream, drifting on the dead air. I saw myself in the glass, a reflection with no eyes, mouth open in a silent, everlasting wail. Below, the island grew still once more, the rocks and weeds settling as if nothing had happened at all. From the lantern room, I watched another boat approach, its lone passenger oblivious to the curse awaiting on the silent shore. The screams began anew, growing louder as the boat docked. The cycle repeating, a lighthouse never satisfied, always hungry for more. Night surrendered to gray morning, but the lighthouse still loomed, casting no light, only a shadow that stretched forever over the waves. The last words I remembered were etched in glass. Some voices are never meant to be answered. Some lamps should never burn. In the silence that followed, the lighthouse waited, patient as stone, knowing the next storm would bring new voices to the scream.